How Biden's top economic advisors view inflation. And the labor market. The latest figures paint a positive picture of the U.S. economy. According to new data, unemployment has fallen to 3.7%. The lowest level in almost 2 years. Employers also added 199,000 jobs last month. And wages continue to rise. So why are so many Americans pessimistic about the economy? According to a recent Gallup poll, nearly 3/4 of Americans believe the economy is deteriorating. Lael Brainard, director of the National Economic Council, which advises President Joe Biden on economic policy, spoke with All Things Considered host Ari Shapiro on Friday about what the numbers show and why inflation is still a problem. Ari Shapiro says according to new data, unemployment is very low, wages increase, and strong job creation. So, what do you think is the most pressing issue right now? What is your main problem that you want to solve? According to Brainard, I think it's important to know how good the job market is. 199,000 more jobs, or 14 million more Americans working since the president took office. How different from last year, if you think about it. Inflation is very high, and forecasters think we couldn't have gotten to where we are today without laying off millions of people. Even so, I'm sure there are still many people who think that anything excessive is too expensive. Next, Shapiro asked, so inflation is your main priority right now? Sure. So, I'm sure the president is considering the economy from the perspective of Americans sitting at their kitchen tables. One interesting piece of data is the rate of return of women to the workforce. The number of women who have stopped working is much higher than men during this pandemic. This is partly due to the high likelihood of job loss, and partly because women bear a disproportionate burden of child care, and this year, the proportion of American women in the workforce reached a new high. Why do you believe there has been such a dramatic increase? I believe Brainard said that is a feature worth noting. Again, 3 years ago, people were talking about the Great Resignation, claiming that women, especially women with children, would not return to the workforce. Instead, we see an increase in labor force participation for women overall, especially for women in their prime, namely those aged 25 to 54 years, including mothers with small children. And I believe this is due in part to the president's strong child care policies, which ensured that people had access to child care at a time when many child care centers were closed. However, this is also true because there is more flexibility regarding how many Americans can work today. Even though the job market is improving, we know that many Americans are concerned about how difficult it will be to obtain certain goods. That's why the president is so dedicated to lowering costs for hardworking Americans. For example, the president has argued that it is not true that prescription drugs are essentially unaffordable for many Americans, which is why he has sought to reduce health care costs. He did very well. The legislation would set the monthly cost of insulin for seniors at $35. For many people, that means a drop of $400. We also cap medical expenses for senior citizens at $2,000 per year. Additionally, Medicare now has the authority to negotiate prices, starting with 10 drugs next year. At the end of the interview, Shapiro asked, but do you think that, when about 3/4 of Americans tell Gallup that the economy is getting worse, it's because of things like insulin prices? I mean, the question seems broader than that, and I'm sure the answer comes from a broader sentiment. Then Brainard said, in fact, we saw a significant improvement in consumer sentiment in the Michigan survey this morning, and we believe this will help maintain improved consumer sentiment.